welcome to our online audience and our panel of experts here at Stockholm's Auktionsverk and the exhibition Inside Swedish Design. My name is Lea Forsten, and I will moderate a talk between Vellinge Innovation, String Furniture, Baux, and John Löfgren from Farmers with Love, where we're going to share insights on how we best reposition materials and solutions using design to our advantage. How can manufacturers and designers be closer to one another, pushing sustainability goals for the next decade? Here to discuss with me, I have Patrik Karlsson, business developer at Vellinge Innovation. Karlsson has for the past years led development at Vellinge and is involved in fast-growing areas such as flat pack logistics, toolless furniture assembly, and micro 3D printing. With us online, we also have Bo Hellberg, Chief Marketing Officer at String Furniture. There you are, Bo, live from London. Bo is working with innovation at String Furniture, an iconic furniture brand that has made its way into countless homes since the 1950s. In 2005, the brand relaunched and confirmed its iconic status by entering new realms such as kitchens and offices, which we will hear more about. With us also from Baux is Felix Fransson, who is managing director at the company. Fransson is a founding partner of Baux and has cultivated the journey of sustainable building materials. He has shown that that materials can be design-led and still meet building expectations. Also, we have in our panel John Löfgren, which is creative director at Farmers with Love, but also a founding partner of Baux. For the past 15 years, Löfgren has directed a tight-knitted team of designers in his studio. One of the unique aspects of Farmers with Love is these ventures, where you have co-founded this company together with Fredrik Fransson. This is going to be a two-part panel. So we're going to start with you, Patrik, and we're going to speak to also Bo online for a couple of minutes, and then we're going to hand over to Baux in a little while. This afternoon's talk is all about how we can challenge the way people think about sustainable building materials. We have lots of interesting materials to choose from today and to look closer at. Biodegradable materials. We know that we can work with flat pack solutions, non-toxic materials, reused and recycled materials, etc. But how do we make all of these accessible and functional to a wider audience? We start with Patrik Karlsson. You've been pushing boundaries and ideas around the flat pack case goods by introducing something called tree spine. I would like to know, and please define for us, what kind of a great furniture solution has to entail in order to meet expectations on today's market. First of all, maybe you can talk a little bit about what tree spine is, but also what kind of ideas is needed in order to make this type of innovation accessible.
Yeah, thank you. Three spine is a click assemble solution where you click the panels together without using any tools. You do it manually with your hands. It's very easy, and it's instead of doing an assembly that is flat pack today, which takes normally 10 to 1 hour to assemble. Today, with our technology, you can do, but it takes around 30 seconds to 10 minutes. But to answer the question, I think a new innovation needs to add something that is not there, that is not available, and that's the easy answer. The hard part, it's actually, it needs to gain some interest for everyone in the supply chain, because the supply chain really needs that. Okay, what's in it for me? So for a designer, it's very important that we can supply our technology to enable more possibilities in shapes and forms, so you can use different materials and combine them. So the creative part is important. For a producer, it's more about finding a good streamlined production, add some new values. If you're in e-commerce, which it's increasing every day, you're starting to think, well, if I'm going to supply my customers with flat pack, I need to have an easy assemble. What is it there out there today? So I think that's two questions. And then you have the retailers. For some, go to the retailers, to the showroom and buy furnitures. You need to add some value for them as well. And I think a value for them is that you offer something that it's with our technology, more sustainable. You can, if you're working with a circularity, you can easily change your furniture with just take 2 panels away, and you can add 2 new panels in different material, and you have a new perfect product, furniture. And the same goes for the end consumer. The end consumer need to feel that this furniture is a part where I'm at in my life right now, and I don't want to have it just for a short time. I want to have it in a longer time because I think more about the environment, the climate. So how can I have this product, this furniture, for a long time? And not today like we use like cell phones. I think furniture is more like cell phones today. You buy for here and now. But how can we have it in a longer term? And I think our technology can do that. So by adding our technology to this, it's important that everyone in the value chain thinks like, this applies for us. So I think an innovation is really depending on giving everyone in the value chain something extra.
And at Value Innovation, do you feel like you gather your team to ask this kind of questions? What is going to add value, for instance? How do you go about that? How do you bring that dialogue into the company?
Well, we're quite a huge company with many innovators. But we listen. We listen to what the interior designers, other people in the business, what they demand, what type of solutions can we find for a problem. I think the big problem right now is that we're sending factory assembled furniture all around the world. So we're transporting more air than actually furniture. So I think we need to transform the market to say, okay, if I buy furniture, a quality furniture, can I be okay that it's coming in a flat pack, and can an easy assemble solution be the next step for us? So we look at the problem and find solutions, I would say, and also efficiency, sustainability is always on the table for us.
But would you say that it's common practice to start with a problem, like you said?
Yeah, it's the easiest way, because otherwise it's just guessing. And I cannot guess what the next design feature is, but I can guess what the next problem is. It's easier. Okay, if you have this today, what will the problem look like?
Great. I'm turning to Bo in London. I suppose one big question is, what does it take to create longevity in the innovation? Patrick was talking about it just now. He was saying that you have to plan ahead, thinking about what will last. How do you at Sting Furniture think about creating longevity?
Well, in the case of Sting, it was and it is innovation in design. So when you innovate, you got to break rules. You got to break new ground. But I think inherently what we do differently is to take the long view, to understand that is what at the end, like you're not just breaking the rules for the sake of breaking rules, you actually try to figure out where we're heading, what are we doing, and you also end up in a place where you set new parameters. So it's some sort of, I know form follows function is all good design, but I think there's something that is very much true to what we do every day. But when you take this approach, you also get the staying power and you don't fall victims to trends. And coming back to design again, I think this is very inherent to Sting. We look at longevity coming from timelessness, from the clean lines. And it's purposely designed not to be ostentatious, but rather quite complementary. And of course, like Patrick talks about, it's the very clever use of materials as well. And what you've ended up with is a design that's been innovative since 1949. It's got the size and the scale and the symmetry and the formats that takes the human into account. It fits within human conditions and how we live as well. And it's got this notion as well about minimalism that we talk about again when we talk about Swedish design, but without lacking in imagination. So it's something about making really good use of very few components and materials, but at the same time giving it something that delivers a value to people every day.
Can you give as an example of breaking the rules? It sounds intriguing. You've been working with designers and architects throughout history with string, and we're talking today about kind of shifting perceptions. How are you breaking the rules with these type of collaborations?
Well, I mean, if you take it back in time, in 1949, there was a certain standard set for bookshelves. And Mr. Strinning basically decided that he would throw away with all of that and create a bookshelf that wasn't static, but would be something that would be never-ending, expanding through the wall panels. And that set some sort of new standard, some paradigm. Today, there's, for instance, in the range, there's a side table that only has one leg. Right? That's not the convention of a table. It should have 4 legs, at least 3 legs, but this has got 1 leg and it's still super stable. It provides a great complement to any living room or any bedroom, if you like, and it's super solid as well. And design-wise, it's really impressive. And I think these kind of briefs, these kind of discussions is something that we do every day at String. The other thing about String, I think, is if you look at the system itself, is that anything that you can put between the wall panels could be part of a String system. It's like a blank canvas. So we constantly look for new functions for the whole house or for the whole home. Like I spoke about sort of in 1949, it was about how can you break the rules when it comes to bookshelves. But today it's about kitchens. It's about your bathroom. It's about outside, outdoor. How do you use these wall panels as a canvas for how we think about our kitchens? So it's the same aesthetic and the same ethos, but different rooms, different thinking, different living spaces. But you actually have a really good examples downstairs in the exhibition where you are, where I can't be, unfortunately, which is a piece that we built up, which is quite impressive and large, from what I can tell from the photos you've sent me. It's this very large and sculptural and abstract configuration, almost like an installation. And it came from this idea about giving the designer freedom to explore and push how far you can take a string system. So what you have there is this feature that climbs across the wall almost organically and reaching out towards the light from the windows. And you wouldn't think about string like that. That comes from the creativity inside people, but inside also a designer who thinks with the freedom that you have within the string system itself. The other thing that's really cool about that piece down there, I have to say, is how we connect the new and the old. It's got this new features from 2021 connected to a string from 1952 incorporated, and they mesh beautifully just with a few hooks.
Because I wanted to ask you that, how do you foster and cultivate that type of relationship where you invite the designer to inject new life, as you're saying, into an old product? Is there a framework for that? Is this something that you do on a continuous basis? How do you set it up?
No, we do it on a continuous basis. There's no strict framework that you have to obey the rules. I think the format and designs and the aesthetic that is from the old string bookshelf still lives on and still rings true. But what it does, and what I try to explain, is that the simplicity of the wall panels give you this kind of opportunity to do something that delivers great new functions for new needs. As we move forward in society and new things happen, and we live in different ways, and we live in different types of homes that we did 50, 60, 70 years ago, it still becomes this innovative platform that we continue to build on.
Great, because that's a great segue into the question that I wanted to ask Patrick as well, because you've also been looking at new behaviors and new use in terms of thinking about assembly and de-assembly. How do you and your team kind of study this relationship between design and new user behavior? And do you have, similar as Bo has here, that you sit down and you look at the kind of proposition and how you can inject new innovation?
Yeah, we had, and if we start with the user behavior, today we see this very fast living. You consume very much. You consume very much furniture as well. So it's a here and now product. It's nothing long term, and like our earlier generation, where they have furniture in the early age and until they fall off, so to speak, or went to the other side. But so I think it's important to know the behavior that we have right now, but also what we can see now. I think we see a new mindset where we're going back to a more long term, because we see what impact we have done on the environment and the sustainability. So we're looking, okay, how can I have a furniture but change the shape of it or change the way it looks from my childhood room till I become old. And that's something we look at. Okay, if we have our system which is very universal, so you can combine all types of material, it's easy to assemble and easy to disassemble. If we introduce that and look at the studies, can actually retailers, producers come even closer to the customers, and therefore they know what demands they need, so they can change 2 panels. You can have today wooden panels, but tomorrow you will have to let's say painted or acrylic or something, compact laminate, whatever, to change the outcome of the furniture. So we look at that behavior and see, okay, there's some that really consume a lot, but they want to be more sustainable and work on sustainability. So I think it's actually good that we introduce our technology, because you can have both. But you don't have to buy so much wood or so much material, because you can just change some pieces. So that's the behavior we look at it for the users, for the designer. It's just give them new materials, let them create, let them have fun with it, and see what they can do. And I think that's what we can do, and that's what our team look at, because we don't know what the next design will be. It's too hard for us. We are a technology company. We can supply with technology. We don't know the design. It's like once again a mobile phone or something. It can look great. It can have great functions, but you didn't do the design. You did the technology inside the phone, and we are that. We are the technology that enables something beautiful.
Great. I think it's fascinating to hear about the modularity that are embedded and what that modularity perhaps does. Bo, I want to turn to you again to ask about this kind of dynamic thinking that Patrick is introducing here, because similar for string furniture, you see this resemblance in these behaviors, wanting to adapt to certain circumstances, wanting much further flexibility into these systems. We talked about how you've been working together with designers and architects, but how you've been working with the user, the end user of the shelving systems.
Yeah, I mean, we're quite fortunate in lots of different ways, but we have been and are still designing for products way outside where you might think of string traditional, which is the living room. So in the string range, there has been cabinets and desks and plenty of other functions and accessories. And that means that we have been able to move into new designs in kitchens, for instance, which are much more open, not as static as they used to be. And people want to change, they want to upgrade, they want to build out. But to Patrick's point about sustainability, the benefit of a string is that you can continue to build out on what you have already. So you don't need to throw it out. You can continue to build new features within the string range. I think what you refer to perhaps is the pandemic. So sitting outside Sweden, I'm very much aware of where we are and how we're doing this one, where pretty much most rooms in a lot of houses have to double up and fit more than one purpose. And it's becoming very clear how dynamic string is, where you have these features that fits into people's lives today when we work from home, study from home. So you can very quickly turn a living room into an office and then back again into a living room and still have something that feels like a lovely home, a functioning interior, but with more than one feature. And that flexibility is going to continue, I think. It's not going to stop right now, not just because we will continue to work from home, but there's also a longer macro trend that we can tell from lots of reports that we have and from how people choose to live. People choose to live in smaller spaces, but people also being more mindful about how we use resources and spend our time and spend our money. It's not just about minimalism, but it's, I guess, a more overall holistic mindfulness that we see a change in people. So spending less, perhaps making more use of what you have, asking more from the products that you purchase, the materials, and the longevity is going to be quite important moving forward.
Is there something super unexpected that you've come across in the last year in the use of string shelves? Is there something that crossed you that you thought, wow, this is something that you wouldn't expect?
I probably didn't expect it. I'm just happy to see the explosion of people posting things on social media, in particular, where you can somehow gauge the temperature in society and trends and stuff. And people taking pride in how they set up their home offices and functions in their homes with string, because the interior decoration has been booming over the last 9 months, because that's where, outside Sweden, most of us have spent our time in our homes, building, creating stuff. And that creativity has suited string very well, but it's also been something that people take a lot of pride in. And it just brings me and a lot of other people a lot of joy. And having home offices that are really exploring and pushing string to the limits is something that also is very obvious.
Great. We're going to turn to Bauks in just a few minutes, but I'm asking you, Patrick, a last question, and it's relating to what Bo also said here. How do you see the kind of life being extended into modularity, such as three-spine, for instance, where you are allowed to change and alter things? How do you see in the 2020s innovation taking shape like this?
First and foremost, we need to work closer with the designers, producers, retailers, know more about their behavior. I like everything what Bo just mentioned to and told us about their way of thinking, because you can extend their furniture, you can change easier. So I think that's very good. And also, I would like to say, we have at Vellinge one of the biggest R&D centers in Europe, where you can test material. We have a climate chamber that's 1,000 square meters, where you can test everything. You have so much. It's like a amazing place to be creative. So invited designers, producers, and that is very important for us. But one thing I really think is there is a big change going on right now, because companies like us at Vellinge, but also IKEA, they're introducing easy assemble. They are really, they know we must take care of our environment. It's flat package. It's really important to ship everything in small, not transporting air. So they also leading the way of easy assemble. So they have introduced their wedge dowel, which is superb, and our technology enables a lot of other things. So I think it's good. So there's nothing that can happen. It's actually happened right now. So we see it, people jumping on the train because they need to be there if they want to be, because sooner or later maybe some government decide that we cannot transport air like this. You have to do the change. So I think it's important to do it now, not later. So working close with everyone, I think it's important, and invite them, make it work together.
It's an interesting proposition. I think we're going to turn to Bauks, to Fredrik Fransson and John Lafke, and we've heard some interesting propositions here from Patrick to John, come and innovate together, but also thinking about how we can reposition materials and building goods together collaboratively, because we're curious to hear more about how you two work together. The setup is unique. You're working with materials such as wood wool and pulp, but as a kind of CEO and a designer working side by side from the very beginning. The prominent question here is, how do you make these kind of sustainable materials interesting for architects and end users? So you sat down at the table and you decided, okay, we're going to make this interesting, we're going to make this fun. What did you what crossed your mind in thinking, how are we going to shift these mindsets? Fredrik, do you want to start? What happened in the early stages of thinking how you reposition something like wood wool, for instance, or pulp?
Yeah, I think when we do these kind of things, we are quite material oriented in our approach. So, and I think we want to highlight the material itself, let it speak for itself, because not mix different materials into each other, instead of bringing the surface to the front and let that be like the beauty of it. Show the beauty of the material. So for example, and also want to tell the story about the material. So for example, our pulp panels, they're made out of cellulose, and together with Formas with Love, we started a journey to think about what is actually cellulose. It's sort of paper, right? What can you do with paper? What beauty things can you do with paper? You can do origami technique, like folding paper, Japanese. So we started off folding paper in different shapes, and then we ended up with 3 different patterns, origami-like. So this is something that I think, working from material, being honest, not afraid of showing the material itself as it is, without adding a lot of things, so we don't have paint on it, as one of the examples.
Because I think it's interesting to hear also Patrick and Bo's examples here. It's all about modularity and thinking about flexibility and so on. What does it mean for you, John, to enter this process and come up with various different ways of looking at pulp, for instance? What was your first thoughts, and how could you reposition the idea of pulp?
I think I would take it back a bit, because I agree so much about what Patrick said. If we're going to do something, make sure we agree what to do. Like if we're going to move something, if we're going to do some proper change, then we need to have both transparency and bring in expertise. I think that's been a core element in why we founded Baux in general, because we didn't want to end up in a mid-range company. We want to do some proper change. And I think when that was laid up on the table and everyone agreed, and I think a dear friend of mine said, if everyone wants to fly to the moon, I think that's going to happen now or later. Or if someone wants to just go to the city center, then we will definitely not come all the way. That's for sure. So I think expertise, transparency, and dare to try, and also be aware of the risks and the resources that it's needed to do anything. And when we start planning, like, okay, let's do a company out of this, and then it was just, we know that we were in it for the long range, so to speak. I mean, and then like, okay, we had wool, but I think when we put that to the market and we got where we wanted, I think the ambition was so much higher, and it still is. So when we launched Pulp, that was the so important second record, for instance. We really wanted to aim a bit higher, and that's what Baux is about. We will not satisfy with that. That's so this is kind of a forward-thinking, energetic snowball that we are really into.
Because I'm intrigued by the dialogues that you have, the two of you, and this criticality that you bring into it. We're going to the moon. How do you respond to that, Fredrik, when John comes in and he has these kind of ambitions and visions, and how do you foster and cultivate that idea?
I think it just to put the standards high. I mean, we want to find new things, and we get constantly rewarded. When we launched Pulp, we got an immediate feedback from the market. So that just put more energy into the process, knowing that we are in the right direction. So this has actually led us to a number of other quite exciting discussions with like material innovators, other companies. So I'm completely with you, John, and so we will never settle down in this journey to continue innovating.
But do you feel, as kind of, do you feel like you have to put on a certain set of constraints in order to also get there in terms of material safety or safety standards in any fashion? How do you balance the relationship that you have as co-founders?
This is, of course, when you do a development process like this, you always have some prerequisites and things. We as a company have a customer, we have a need that we want to fulfill, we have the target market, and we have some ideas, but we also have, the manufacturing process. What can we do? What can't we do? What is the characteristics of the material? And we set those boundaries in the process, of course, but along the way, doing some sort of innovation, because we do this for the first time, we stumble upon new things and we learn along the process. So we have constantly to reconsider it and do other things, and perhaps leave some of our best ideas behind because we can't do it. In the end, we want to have a product on the market that is working. We need to have a fire-safe product, otherwise it can't be used. We need to have aesthetically appealing, otherwise architects won't specify it or like it. And we need to have a sustainable product, and it needs to be acoustic. So if we don't have that, we need to start over again. That is like key cornerstones along the process already from the beginning. So I don't think we have any conflicting things here. It's more like we're trying to reach a common ground forward.
Definitely. I think the starting point need to be agree upon what you want to achieve.
Yeah.
And then after that it's just make sure that the threshold is as low as possible, and be aware, like Fredrik says. I think when you have a process that makes sure that we are on the road all the time, but it could definitely take some turns.
I'm curious, also because of the constellation of Bauks being focused on one material at a time. John, how have you perceived working as a designer and also as a collaborator on these materials, focusing on wood wool first and then pulp after? How is it different to work so focused on one material at a time?
I think it's fortunate to be able to do that. Me personally work with several materials or processes simultaneously, but focusing on Bauks that we were aware or been dealing with the wood wool, for instance, and we knew that it was a great material, been around for 75 years, and we knew that. But I think we knew that we had that, but what should we do that had other properties that could complement that? And all of a sudden we have not a weight problem, but the density made the wood wool heavy, for instance. And what is the lightest thing you can imagine? It's paper. So I think that was a kind of a clear path. We knew that we're going to do something differently that we already had.
And that's very interesting. The same goes back to you, Fredrik. Like, how do you keep injecting passion and energy when you are dealing with one material for a longer period of time?
As I said before, when we get that kind of response from the market, is giving us energy, of course, but I would also like to highlight a thing that from outside it may look that we just work with two materials, but behind that we had like 5 or 6 different tracks of other materials that we're like, okay, this material is not ready now yet, the production is not ready, or we stumble upon problems where the material was too weak to make the products that we wanted to do, so we had to pause that. So now maybe the development is taking a couple of steps further, so we can bring that material back into work again. So it has been quite a broad. Of course, then we select a material to go dig deeper into, and I think once we get to a position where we see like this material really ticks all the boxes and it's really possible, it's kind of amazing to collect the team around that and you see, okay, we can really do something great with this material. It gives a lot of energy, of course.
just building on that, I think it's interesting what I've been in this business now for 15 years, and what's happened in the last 5 is astonishing in terms of what's happening. And I think Patrick was also into that, like things that was not possible, or the streams was uncertain if you had the ambition to be innovative and sustainable. I think that is a complete change, and I want to be part of this journey, because that's been just starting, and I think it's happening so much so fast with expertise again, bring things to the table and make sure that we could end up and replacing material that we should replace in the last kind of line in the retail situation, and then the consumer that actually going to use it.
Yeah, I think it's a very exciting time that we are in, and we're drawing this to a close. But first, I wanted to ask actually all of you and Bo online as well, whether there is a kind of best kept secret to how to sustain this innovation and design relationship. You're touching on it now. We're in a critical time where I think this is really kind of being pushed forward. But how do you, as company leaders and managers, innovation managers, but also designers, what is the best kept secret to kind of sustain and keep this kind of force going? Fredrik, do you have any thoughts?
Well, there are of course a lot of things, and I think we've touched upon many of them when I'm hearing Patrick and Ole and Don speaking. But I think curiosity is of course an open-minded ideas of what we can do, and questioning things. But I would also like to highlight the need for multi-competence, like cross-functional teams. We need to have, like in pulp case, we need to have chemistry people knowing how to modify the cellulose molecule, for example, which I don't know about. Now I know more, but just on a very brief level. And we need to have good designers, and we need to have business people, and we need to have manufacturing people. All of them needs to be part of this innovation process. Otherwise, it will be very difficult.
And I also just thinking about, it won't happen anything if the consumer won't accept it. I think it's also something that we are dealing with products that maybe have a like circle kind of setup. Maybe it's not completely glossy and white. And I think that's also the consumer today. This is completely up to date in terms of food, for instance. I could have a dinged apple instead of the glossy, almost rendered one, because I know that this harvest is better and so forth, and I could even pay a higher price for it. And I think that's a starting point to do some proper change. And I think this is something that we need to deal with in the business, and also explain why things look like they are. I think it's a super interesting to deal with. I take the pulp as an example. We have, instead of paint it, we decided to let the wheat grain itself in the product itself be exposed, and all of a sudden we had a range of colors instead of saying this is pink and yellow. And I think that was also at least a step forward in how you could address this. And also material, as how can we make sure that the material age like a good wine, right? And how do we make sure that our panels is like a oak table, that the dings are part of it, for instance. And I think these are things that everyone is enlightened, and I think we're going to be even more tomorrow. And this is again a journey that is I think we could stress it even more, I think, because the people are aware.
Yeah, it's interesting that keeping it kind of real. I like that idea. Any best kept secrets, Patrick, from you in thinking and sustaining this relationship between innovation and design?
I think the key thing is, as the guys mentioned here, it's to be transparent and show, and we really need to take responsibility. It's so important to know that we actually have a product that can have all the best for a long time, so to speak. For string, I mean, if you do installation at a home, next time they go there, they can change something and still have this outcome or different materials. So I don't have a best secret. I just want to come out with the technology to enable all things. And we talked before this meet of what we can do together. We do everything with our technology. We do beds, we do sofas, we do reception desks. Why don't we do sound absorbent which you can put on the wall? So it's no secret. It's actually getting out. That's the hardest part with innovation, is to get it out. It's very hard.
Great. Do we have any final words from Bo? What are the best kept secrets to sustaining the relationship between innovation and design?
I think it's about diversity. I mean, I think it's almost that simple. It's this melting pot and melding of minds that you need to bring together, but you have to ensure that the points of view, the thoughts, the backgrounds, the age, the ways you live, everything comes from diametrically different parts of the universe, because that's when you get that clash and you get the spark and you challenge the status quo, which is essentially what this is all about. And you need to have that inherent diversity in what you're doing and how you set it up.
Great. This is all that we have time for today. It's been such a pleasure, and I hope that you've enjoyed this talk as much as I have. Please take your time to browse through our program from today, streaming from inside Swedish Design. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.